Monica, with us now is Dr. Richard Chasdi, who's written several books on terrorism and international security. Next to him is Barack Barfi, a foreign policy expert who specializes in the Middle East. Gentlemen, we thank you for being here.
Thank you.
First of all, no group has claimed responsibility for the attacks in Paris today, but from what we know, multiple sites targeted, more than 150 innocent lives taken. What does that tell you about who's behind this?
Well, the complexity of the attack and the multiple targets involved suggests a very high degree of coordination. And also, these types of attacks require a great deal of resources to carry out in terms of preliminary planning, surveillance, finding safe havens, contacting and coordinating actions with those that in some way are assisting in the attack. What many analysts are saying now is that this may well have been an ISIS attack, but it's not clear at this point because there's been no claim of responsibility, nor have there been any clear lines taken.
Barack, would you agree with that?
Yeah, we're going to have to wait until whoever was responsible for this attack issues the testament videos. These are basically last will and testaments. These are videos of the suicide bombers, of people participating in the attack, and then they'll pledge loyalty to the organization. So we have to wait to see where that stands. And also what's very important, Huel, it's very important to know if this was a homegrown attack or it was a blowback attack. What that means is when we talk about blowback, people who traveled to Iraq and Syria to fight with ISIS and then they were sent back to carry out attacks, or were these homegrown people, French nationals, who made contact with ISIS on social media and were told stay put and you plan an attack in your home country.
How is it, though, that Western intelligence, the CIA, the French Brigade of Electronic Warfare, couldn't detect this before it happened because it was so sophisticated?
Well, part of the problem is, in addition to having too little information, sometimes there's too much information. And we experienced this in the post 9/11 period, where it came out, the so-called Phoenix memo, that there were activities that should have been taken note of by the authorities, which weren't in terms of those that perpetrated those attacks. So that remains unclear. But oftentimes you look for breakdowns in communication channels when something like this happens. And there is a human factor which sometimes leads to oversight or omission of important information.
But this came just months after the attack on the Charlie Hebdo magazine headquarters. You would have thought that the French would be looking for this, Barack. Two
problems here, Huel. First of all, there's just too many people coming and going from Iraq. We think there's about 6,000 foreigners who have traveled from the West to Iraq and Syria. I believe the French have arrested more than 200, 300 people. There are just too many people for them to watch at this point in time. And secondly, Huel, what is a big problem? This is called the Snowden effect. Because of what the Edward Snowden, the NSA contractor, what he's released, how the United States goes about collecting information, these jihadists are now using very secure encrypted chat communications and mobile apps, and the NSA can't crack them. And in some cases, they use Chinese and Russian apps that nobody can get into.
Thanks to Edward Snowden, the terrorists now know where we're looking and what we're looking for. Then the question is, how do we stop it? Is it time for us to confront the evil of ISIS head on? Not just bombs from the sky, but boots on the ground.
Well, let me just say that one important question that we need to ask is what were the ports of entry for these terrorists who came in? If it wasn't France, we'd like to know where, because opportunity recognition is an important component of terrorist activity. And this brings into, again, sharp focus, the Schengen Agreement, which was done in the late 1990s, which removed all physical barriers and checkpoints between countries in the European Union. And that has proven to be beneficial in terms of commerce, services, and durable goods.
But it opens the door.
It's a nightmare for security issues.
Barack?
Yeah, I don't think there's any going back on Schengen. I mean, those borders are open. You take a train from Switzerland to France. No one's going to get on the train. No one's going to ask you for your papers when you cross all these borders. So that is something that's not going to go back.
Very quickly, did what we see in Paris, can that also happen here in the USA? I'm glad to see the reluctance. So maybe not. Maybe you're saying we are a bit more secure? Yes? No?
I'm not sure 100% we're more secure, but I think that when you talk about the supply of terrorists who can carry this out, it's much lower here in the United States. Why? First of all, we do not have as many Muslims as a country as France. I think there's about 7 to 8 million Muslims in France that make up 10% of the population. And they're not as alienated here. They're more integrated into the community. And thirdly, not as many Americans have gone to fight with ISIS in Iraq and Syria. It's much harder for them to get there from here than it is from Europe.
Let me just also say that in the United States, what is one of the wonderful characteristics of the United States is we have great upward mobility, and we have socioeconomic divisions, upper class, middle class, working class, that work in a sense to break up the ethnic identifications of groups so that there isn't the same intensity and concentration of antipathy that is based along socioeconomic lines.
Gentlemen, I hope you are right. We thank you for being here.
Thank you.